Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi,
Hello.
we're back. And today what we're doing is along the same theme of what we've been doing, but a little bit different because tonight is Lag BaOmer, the holiday. And so next week we'll continue with some of the kind of similar stuff we've been doing recently. But today, in honor of the Lag BaOmer, tonight we're going to be looking at what we've been looking at kind of topical themes related to the counting of the Omer, which is all about self-transformation and transforming oneself to get ready to receive Torah. And so we went through anger, we went through the the joy of the battle of our against ourself. Last time we looked at yourself before you look at others. But today we're doing something that's related to all of it, but specifically about this one day. Our source sheet. This is one of the texts that my father loves to teach, connected to Lag BaOmer. It's by the Alexander Rebbe. And one of my friends, who's actually was a student, she's a rabbi in California, now more of a therapist than a rabbi. But she's a student of my father's, and she studied it with my father too, and she loved it herself so much that when they had included this whole extended source sheet. And I've translated parts of it before, but she's translated the whole thing. So I'll just borrow hers since she did a nice job. So thank you, Yael. So this is a Lag BaOmer source. And so Lag BaOmer tonight, it's really a pretty mysterious holiday. So why is it called Lag? Lag is a transliteration of Lamed Gimel, which if you count is 33, right? So Lamed is 30 and Gimel is 3. And so it's the 33rd day of the Omer. That's what Lag BaOmer means.
Counting from Passover.
Counting from
Like
Passover.
beginning of or the end?
The second day of Passover.
Second day.
So it's been 33 days since the second day of Passover. And yeah. And then we're going all the way to 7 times 7 days, which is the 50th day is Shavuot. So this is supposed to be the most important day in all that whole journey, right? They left Egypt on the first night of Passover, and then there's the first day, and then they say they walked all the way, and they finally received the Torah, which was, you didn't just leave Egypt to do anything. You left Egypt to receive Torah and to receive God's mission and all of that. But it's strange because this period after Passover is actually considered to be, the Omer is considered to be not a happy period, but a difficult period. So there's this tradition not to get a haircut at all. So
Or
religious people
or marriage,
or marriage, right? You're not supposed to marry between Passover and today. And so you usually have no marriages, you have no haircuts. So, yeah, no shaving even, so
So do you follow that? You don't perform a marriage?
I don't perform marriage and I don't get a haircut in between, except when it's so some people stop at not Lag BaOmer, but some people since Israel's creation after Yom HaAtzmaut stop it. That's what I do. So some people, because that's another happy day that they say interrupts the Omer. So I got my haircut after Yom HaAtzmaut last week. So I didn't between Passover and when I didn't have a public role, I used to not shave either between that period. But these days, if you don't shave, even though I'm in a Jewish job, you're like, why haven't you shaved? What's wrong with you? So I generally shave a little bit, but it's considered to be a sad period. And why is it a sad period? I think they're free, they're walking towards Sinai. Why is it not? Well, it's kind of strange, but because of a story in the Talmud that's attributed to somehow this period. That Rabbi Akiva, we studied this last year, had tens of thousands of students, and he had tens of thousands of students, and they somehow got into each other's nerves and started warring with each other. And it was just a sign for how petty human beings can get, warring with each other. And they were just, even though they were students of the same, rabbis, they should have been friends, right? It's not like one was on one side of the border. They should have been friends, but they weren't getting along. They're part of the same community, and a plague broke out, and all kind of terrible things happened. And finally, they say on Lag BaOmer is when finally they stopped fighting with each other. This is the day when finally they started to get along and started to, and so that's one side of the holiday. And so on Lag BaOmer also is considered to be the day of that Shimon Bar Yochai, he was the sage who spent all those years in the cave.
He came out.
And then he came out eventually. No, this is the day he died. And so in Israel, Lag BaOmer among religious people is like their Woodstock. And I've talked about it before. They go
Oh, they
They-
celebrate around the cave?
around the cave.
Okay.
Like up to 1 million people go. And they have,
Oh,
Caves are very important
Yeah,
because
I
the
have-
meditation
I have
potential
heard of
yes.
that.
of being in the
Yeah.
cave are pretty heavy.
yeah, and they have haircuts. It gets really wild. They sometimes sacrifice animals, kill animals and eat them, and they
Well, it depends on the animal. They kill ants and
Goats.
mosquitoes.
Well, that's okay.
Goats.
They don't kill.
But they
But
they
do
stay
they
up
eat,
all
but they
night.
eat them?
They stay up all night. They shech goats and they stay up all night and they dance around fires. Right, it's a bonfire holiday, and they go They have these huge ultra orthodox
Now,
stadiums now. Yeah, with they have like these bleachers, like if they can hold tens of thousands, and kind of like. And they have like music and they come together, and there was a terrible accident a few years ago where I remember like really a lot of people died because there's
And the
stampedes,
collect-
and
yeah.
they're going through these, or anyway,
they get crazy.
they get a little bit crazy, but it's supposed to be this special night of mystical opportunity that something opens up.
It's not from drinking, it's just from acting
The
out.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
There
sure
might be
they're
some
drinking
yeah,
too.
there's some
Bet
drinking
there
too
is.
and other stuff
I
maybe,
bet
but
there
it's like this night of mystical celebration. They let loose a little bit. And so we're going to be in honor. So tonight's that night, and some people stay up all night, or it's a night to study really deep, profound things. And there's a sense of like something opens up to allow you to really understand it or feel it or whatever it is on Lag BaOmer. And there's a song that people sing on Lag BaOmer for Shimon Bar Yochai. Maybe I'll play it just for the fun of it later on. So this is one this is the explanation. So right, yeah, the final pieces, right? There's a tradition of through the Omer. What are you counting? Well, you're counting the 50 days, but you're also counting right, we said this a few weeks ago, that every week is a different of the sefirot, and then every day is a different sefirah of that week. So this is a week. So we're coming to a special moment that's Hod, that it's in Hod. So it's kind of like it's splendor that's within splendor. So it's an extra splendorous day. But it's like an energetic alignment on this day, where it's like something, because every day within the Omer, you're working on things within yourself that corresponds to different qualities of the sefirot. And then you come to this day, and this day is supposed to be the most really important day in that journey. All that to say, it's kind of mysterious, strange holiday.
We don't do much about it.
We don't do much, it's in Israel. In Israel, it's a day of bonfires. Everybody makes bonfires and cooks potatoes in the bonfires. And all over Israel, they have terrible fires that rage because of bonfires that go out of control. So
Especially on a hot day like
yeah,
today.
so in
if we
Israel,
make
Yeah.
in Israel, at this point of year, it's really hot, and so everything is. So it's a day of bonfire. That's how most people observe it. And then among the ultra orthodox, or the mystical, they have all these things. And so we're doing our little observance of it, and we're studying this text, which is one of my fathers, and he gave it to myself and Yael and others who like it as well too, and by the Alexander Rabbi.
I wonder if my grandfather, the rabbi, he was in Missouri
Oh, really?
in 1880. So I
Hmm.
wonder if he was part of that Alexander
Wow.
dynasty.
Could have been.
Amazing. Bonnie, you mind starting us off with this little
Okay.
explanation of the Alexander diamond?
Excuse me, before you do that, can I ask a question?
Sure, please go ahead.
Okay, my question is, I never heard of this before, so, is this
Yeah.
a part of our Feast of Weeks, or is it something totally different?
Is it part of what, sorry?
Is it a part of our, our feast
Oh.
of our weeks?
Oh, the
Or,
Feast of
or
Weeks.
is it,
Shavuot. No, no, the Shavuot is coming up. But if you read the Torah, if you read the Bible, right, it says that after Passover you shall count. You shall count the weeks to it. So this is part of a biblical tradition, which was to count the barley. You would count it as part of the it's called a sefirot, which means to count. So it's part of it appears several times in the Bible. In those in the Bible, there's several lists of holidays where it says these are all your holidays, and then there's this practice of counting. It says you shall count, it's fartem. It says you shall count from this period to this period, the weeks, and so over thousands of years, different other traditions got attached to this counting, and this is the 33rd day of the counting. And so it is in that sense, but the holiday itself, Lag BaOmer, which means the 33rd day of the Omer, the 33rd day of counting, the Omer. Omer is a measure of grain. But the traditions of what we've done over the years have changed. And this tradition of counting it as the Hilula, as the death of Shimon Bar Yochai, who's a 2nd century sage, that's more recent than the Torah, obviously, because he's
What's the last day? How many days?
50 Shavuot. We count 7 days, 7, so it's 49.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. We passed the hump. Bonnie, if you don't mind.
Okay. The Alexander dynasty was the second largest sect of the Hasidic movement. This lineage flourished in Poland from 1880 until it was largely destroyed by Nazi Germany during World War II. Truth, humility, and love of fellow Jews were some of the main themes of this stream of thought. Their Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzhak Menachem Danziger, was murdered in Treblinka.
So maybe just to stop to say that we were studying the early Hasidic movements, but they were kind of offshoots of those early movements that then created new movements, sects. And so even as in the late 1800s, these new sects suddenly appeared because new rebbes appeared and started new things and wrote their books. And so the Alexander dynasty was not directly after the Baal Shem Tov, but several generations later that it came up.
Regarding the essence of Lag BaOmer, I heard a teaching from the Holy Rebbe of Biale. During that time of Lag BaOmer, the energetic aspect of Hod within Hod is manifesting.
So you can go back and read down the little
Okay.
note you put.
Hod is one of the 10 sefirot, or energetic centers found in the body. This energy is associated with the left leg, emotions, humility, inspiration, splendor, and sincerity. Why left leg?
Has anybody felt that? I mean, is this?
I have a
is this
terrible left leg.
No. You have pain
I
in
gotta
your
turn
left
it
leg.
into
No, is
something
this
spiritual.
an experience that
Yeah, me
a
too.
practice,
My leg is
Go ahead.
all bad.
meditator might feel in their
I
left
mean,
leg?
I think one can feel energy in the
In
left
other
leg
parts
or
of-
in other parts of the body. I personally think that this sefirah, even if you say left leg, and sometimes considered to be a left leg, I think it's actually in the center. It's more towards the stomach. But I think one can feel energy in the leg, but I think that energy shooting down the leg is something different. Then that's my own personal thing. But it's often in Judaism, Hod is shown in the leg, is shown in the left or right leg, and look, if you want to somehow compare it to other, and you look at the way the Chinese medicine looks at qi, right?
Sure.
It's throughout the whole body. There's channels of qi, and they put needles in different places to kind of affect the whole. So this is kind of like the Jewish version of that on some level. We don't do needles. We meditate on it. We could do needles too, I guess, but yeah, we have enough suffering. We don't need to bring more suffering on ourselves. Go ahead, Bonnie.
And the tikkun rectification of the aspect of Chod is to know, elevate, and return all of the Chod energy one receives to the Holy One, and to know that the glory and majesty is before God. Psalm 96.
So what does that mean to you to return all of the energy of humility, splendor, to return all the splendor to God? What does that mean?
I'm gonna keep mine.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
it seems.
I mean, why share it? Do we have to share it? God has so much.
I like that.
What does it mean? What's
What
the
do you
sense?
think?
Let's keep going, let's keep going.
Yeah,
Let's keep going.
okay. Meaning that all of the glory experienced through the Chod center that a person has comes from God. Therefore, when a person understands this, no hatred or jealousy will arise towards his fellow who has glory and majesty while he does not. This is because all of that glory and majesty comes from God, and all of it belongs to God.
So,
We have to give it back.
so we have to say, it's not even saying, I think she didn't use it right. It's not so much give it back, but saying know where it comes from. So it's saying
Okay.
all of your sense of of your own majesty and splendor, like I'm so great, I'm so splendor, I'm so majestic. Don't think it's because I'm so great, think it's God gave it to you. That's what it's
Yeah,
saying, right? So
right.
it's like, it's saying, don't think that all one's own glory comes from yourself. All that glory, which she said, what they're saying is an energy, right? There's an energy of feeling splendorous, right? There's some, I guess, kings and queens feel that
Yeah.
tremendously, but anybody can feel splendorous.
So maybe they don't mean sending it all back to God. Maybe they mean more of a
take credit for
circular
It's
thing,
attributed-
going-
attributed
Yeah.
going,
to God.
so going up and down and moving it around.
Yeah, sure. But mostly, I think attributing to where it's to the source.
So, yeah, if you not even because of things you're doing in your life, but if somehow you just feel so splendid and wonderful and majestic, and then you shouldn't make it think like, oh, you shouldn't let it then get your ego, make you think,
Right,
oh, I'm so
right.
wonderful,
Yeah.
I'm so great.
Right.
Say, oh, that feeling itself, that energy of
Yeah, you
greatness came
mustn't
from
forget where it
came from God, and it didn't, even if it came for a valid reason, but don't. And therefore, when a person understands, there's no hatred or jealousy will arise towards his fellow who has glory and majesty while he does not. Right? So if you feel like, oh, I feel so non-splendor, but this other person has splendor, you shouldn't think,
Be jealous,
know,
should be jealous, right?
Well,
Because-
it may be that you've got a narrower pipe. Going with your analogy of the pipe, if
Yeah.
you've got a
The
narrower pipe
connection.
and the other guy's got a thick pipe, and we know that the flow down a pipe is twice, no, 4 times. If you have a double-sized pipe,
Yeah.
you're gonna have 4 times the flow. So, you might feel envious, you might feel jealous. So how does one conquer that?
and it could just be also a period of one's life, it could be.
Yeah.
Can I say
Yeah.
something?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that if I was gonna think about that, I would think about it in the way that we are made in God's image,
Yeah,
and I would think that we will want to reflect that to the world.
yeah. I think that's definitely part of it. You want to reflect God's image and not think that your image is so beautiful and perfect and powerful and everything. And so it's a variation on that. But it's saying it's also saying there's like a quality that happens to human beings of feeling splendor and majestic. And when that happens, one can easily think, well, it's coming from my own greatness instead of
Yeah,
it's coming from God. And maybe it is because we've done work to be able to bring it all, or it could also be just because it could be something wonderful happen in our life, and God is giving us a gift. And instead, when it's happening to us, saying, "Oh, thank you, God, for this gift," oh, it's because I'm so great and I deserved it, or It could, or it could just be, different periods in life. Sometimes I get it, sometimes this person gets it, and sometimes this other person gets it.
I can think of a time like that. I remember when Howard was working at Gottlieb Hospital and Linda, my daughter-in-law, was giving birth to Rebecca. The
Yeah.
nurse let me and Howard in.
Yeah.
And when that baby was born, that feeling really
Mm,
was just like that.
wonderful. And beautiful. Well, I should have mentioned my brother and his wife gave birth
Oh,
a few
did they
days
get
ago.
that?
Yeah.
Oh,
but
very
they-
nice.
What did they have?
Boy, a few days ago.
Because they
Yeah.
have two girls.
Two girls, yeah,
Oh.
two girls who are about to have their second birthday. So they're gonna be busy.
Oh my God, they're gonna be busy.
But,
What's his name?
no name yet.
No name yet?
No. Let's continue.
It is explained in the Talmud, Yevamot 60b, that the students of Rabbi Akiva did not behave with respect towards one another, and that they saw each other with unkind eyes. It is understood that this flaw exists and originates in the quality of thought, as explained above.
So you see, the fact that they saw each other with unkind eyes is because each one was thinking, my splendor is greater than
Yeah.
yours, you've got less splendor, and that's why they were being unkind.
When they, the students of Akiva, arrived at the day of Lag BaOmer, the aspect of Hod within Hod, which is the essence and innermost aspect of Hod, they rectified this aspect of Hod, and in this way averted spiritual death.
So the sense that when you're feeling that way, which every one of us in our life has felt that way, why did that person, or look at me, or one of that, everyone has felt that there's a way to fix that, and it's almost an energetic fix. It's like saying just shift in yourself that thing of, instead of saying, oh, I'm so great, or that person's so great, it all comes from God, and we all have it all comes from God. So they finally, on this day, there was some kind of cosmic alignment which helped them see that. And that cosmic alignment in the universe also helped them suddenly see it and be like, oh, let's not be unkind to each other. Let's go.
Why don't you grab that box of Kleenex? Rabbi got it. Thank you.
Okay, let's continue on.
On Lag BaOmer, the light of the giving of Torah began to sparkle. Israel merited this revelation by means of, and Israel encamped, Hebrew, Vayachan, there in the desert in front of the mountain
So
of
let's-
Sinai.
Go ahead, yeah, let's read that in order.
That is to say that each and every one of them, Israelites, had chen, graciousness in the eyes of her fellow. By means of this shift in perspective, they became like one person with one heart.
Let's go down to the note below there.
The Hebrew words for encamped, vayachan, sounds like the Hebrew word for grace, chen. The author is suggesting that the use of the word encamped in the Torah implied that at that time the Israelites were experiencing God's grace for one another. Also, Rashi says, at all their other encampments, the verse says, vayachanu, and they camped in the plural. Here it says, vayachan, and he camped in the singular. For all other encampments were full of arguments and dissent, whereas here they camped as one human with one heart. The Bechilta Rashi on Exodus. In other words, this graciousness enabled unity, which enabled revelation.
So it's this beautiful idea of we're seeing the grace of God in each other, right? So they saw, because there's this idea that so they were traveling from Egypt, and finally they arrived at the base of the mountain on the 33rd day, right? So this day they arrived on the base of the mountain, and it says in the Torah, this verb vayachan, and they encamped, but it doesn't say they encamped, it really says he encamped. So why was it he? And it was saying because the people were like one. And so it's saying that on this day, there's a special ability to feel like we're all one person. And how do you do that? By seeing the grace of God in each other, which is really a beautiful expression, right? It's like instead of saying you're separate, you're this, it's to see the grace of God is flowing in all of us, and we're all part of that same grace.
The only revelation comes as a group.
And it's only when we're feeling that way the revelation can come. If you feel like, that person over there is thinking and I'm here, and how can you? But if God's grace is on all of us, I mean, I just love that expression, right? Seeing the grace of God and each other, and that can be, there's a wonderful feeling to that kind of. And so they saw, and they saw the graciousness of God in each other, and they saw how, oh wow, I can see how God's grace flows in everybody, it's once you can see God's grace, kind of what Michelle was talking about, the seeing the image of God in another, but that feels more theoretical, but seeing God's grace in another person, that's a beautiful expression, right? So see God's grace in all other people, suddenly you become like one person with one heart, right? You suddenly become united by that.
Okay.
Let's do a little more, yeah.
At that moment, they knew that grace, glory, and majesty come from God. Therefore, each person had grace in the eyes of her fellow, not the reverse, God forbid. When this light appeared to the students of Rabbi Akiva, by means of this, they were able to rectify the taken, the aspect of Hod.
Let's go down to that note, number 30.
This use of letaken illustrates the original definition of tikkun olam, to energetically balance divine energy through human contact.
So we talk about tikkun olam a lot, right? Tikkun olam is one of the most is a phrase, especially in the last few decades in the reform movement, all movements, that talks about repairing the world, right? That tikkun olam is used for the social justice in general, but I mean there were instances of using the word tikkun olam in the Talmud and Mishnah regarding legalistic stuff, but the word really was used by the Kabbalists, and that's what the original. So to repair the world, originally what it meant was doing this energetic work. So when you start to see the grace in another person and see that God's grace flows through all of us, you're repairing the world, right? That's the work of repair that we can do in our world, because if you do that, it's energetic balancing of the world, and it sets everything right. So that's, but according to the Kabbalists, that work is foundational and comes before you try and fix the outer world. This is what they say. They say tikkun atzmo. A person has to fix and heal themselves first, and then when they're whole, if they go out and fix the world, they're so much more able to do it from a powerful place.
May I ask you a question about that? That's very interesting, because I was looking at that, and of course I realized that there's a kind of a 19th century social justice that you're pointing to, which I don't disparage at all. But so it was familiar to me from the Aleinu prayer. So L'takein olam b'malachut shaddai. And I wonder if that was, well, that's before the Kabbalists, right? Or at least before the medieval Kabbalists.
Yeah, I mean,
so does that fit in here at all? That the Siddur translates it perfection.
Yeah, I mean, so it's the in the Siddur, in the Aleinu, when you say the taken olam b'malchut shaddai, it's talking about God doing it, right? First of all, or in a certain sense, because malchut shaddai, right? And it's, I mean, I know, I remember I myself do this when I daven the Aleinu. I often say the taken olam b'malchut shaddai out loud, because it makes me think of tikkun olam, so I like it. But in the context of the second verse of Aleinu, it's not really what we're talking about in the same way. And really, the earliest mentions of to taken olam come from rabbinic sources, and are really about solving legalistic issues that can impact human beings. So regarding gets, for example. So different things you do to make sure that people are not chained, into marriages and things. And so there's different things, different ways where in rabbinic Judaism, you don't want people to be stuck in halacha categories where they are chained or have issues. And so then there's an issue, there's kind of fixes you make to it, and that's the taken olam, to fix the world, i.e. to make people's lives more doable. That's the real first uses of tikkun olam. I don't think scholars really consider the Aleinu to be a kind of in the same line. It's kind of more
Oh.
just
That's
kind of
interesting. I didn't realize that.
happens to be. That's my sense. I can do a little bit of research back into it, but that what comes to mind, that it happens to use that expression in that context, but it's kind of not in that stream of thought.
Thank you.
Norma,
Where did we leave off?
yeah, and he, the Bialy Rebbe.
And he, the Bialy Rebbe, continued to reveal about this topic of unity in his holy words as written in the Magid of Mezerich. May his memory be a blessing.
So let's just stop here for
Okay,
a minute and just say, so the Alexander Rebbe, and this is quoting, this is what Jews always do, right? You quote the name of this person, the name of that person, but here they're doing it for Hasidic Rebbes, and they heard a few generations before a teaching, and then what they love to do is link teachings together, right? This is the Talmud wants to keep every teaching as authentic as possible, and here they bring in the spirit of an earlier teaching and then expand it and bring all these different ones and connect them together to make some kind of beautiful whole. That's the way the Hasidim used to like to do their teaching. So he's bringing this teaching by the Bialy Rebbe, which I'm sure he himself is changing a lot into his words. I don't think I've seen the original Bialy Rebbe, and some of it's coming from the Magid of Mezerich, but I know this is a very common Hasidic way of doing it, and so my father, who spent many years studying with Shlomo Karlebach, who was kind of like a modern Hasidic Rebbe, really. And Shlomo Karlebach, when he was teaching, he would often say, well, it says in the Meor Einayim, or it says in this Hasidic text, blah, 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 blah. And they'd be, okay, beautiful, beautiful teaching. And my father would go back to the original teaching and say, it doesn't say that at all, and it's, everybody twists the teaching a little bit to make it work. Everybody's creative with the teachings to make it use the spirit of the teaching, and then you make it work there. You make it work your needs. And that's kind of that was very much Shlomo Karlebach, but it's kind of a Hasidic approach, which is a little bit different than a Talmudic approach, which is to try and be as, absolute and accurate. But here you're trying to make an inspiring point. And so you take the spirit of it and then you fudge the details and it works.
Yeah, well, that makes things more flexible.
It makes things more flexible, more fun, right?
For sure.
And then it gives
It's
everybody the right.
interpretation.
Yeah, it gives you the right. I like it. I find it makes things a little bit more fluid and interesting. And the thing of having, it makes it harder to trace back, because then you're like, where did this exactly come from? Because you go back and it's not exactly there always the way you thought it was. But that, by the way, happens even in the mainstream commentators of the Torah, with Rashi and Ibn Ezra and all of them. Sometimes they'll quote things and most of what they're doing was through memory, and sometimes they just they remember things wrong, and so they're quoting it, but they get their quotations wrong sometimes. So anyway, let's move forward.
Okay.
May his memory be a
The
blessing.
world of Tohu, should I read that?
Yeah,
This-
yeah.
The phrase Tohu Vahu comes from Genesis 1-2 and describes the condition of the earth before the creation. Precise translation of the phrase is difficult, but it is usually translated as waste and void, formless and empty, or chaos and dissolution. Personally, I call it chaos Shemaya.
Chaos Shmeya. She has a sense of humor. Chaos Shmeya. She has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So it's just a great big amount of chaos.
No center, no
Yeah,
center.
Yeah.
There's another way to think about it.
There's
It
no
just-
being.
Yeah, independent things.
Are a bunch of points that have no connection one to the other, and the world of rectification is aligned, unified.
So this is a basic Magid of Mezrich. So what does it mean, a world before creation, a world of chaos?
What is
It's
this?
just nothing is connected to each other, right? What's chaos? Everything is disconnected. Everything is random. Nothing is.
Yeah, but I thought God created the world, but.
Well, it says God created the world out of the chaos. That's
Out
what
of
it
the
says.
chaos.
So there was some primordial kind of nothing was connected, and out of it, it's even more complicated. But
Very.
and then the world of rectification is alive. So what does it mean, a world where everything is whole? Everything is united. Everything is aligned. We can understand that. We feel that within ourselves. When we're feeling chaotic, we feel like nothing is connected within ourselves. We're just like, whoa, when we feel aligned within ourselves, then we feel whole, right? So that's It's a cosmic reality. Go ahead.
Said that holy words in this way, that even though this matter is about the supernal secrets, nevertheless, each and every person can choose to take on these teachings and practice this work in order to assure that she will participate in the world of Tikkun and not the world of Tohu. Each person can have a grasp and experience the connection between a person and her fellow, and how by means of rectifying her, one should find graciousness in each and every fellow and see the strengths of her fellow and not her faults.
So it's saying that when, right, that there's some cosmic fixing that every one of us is part of doing, which is trying to create connection between other things, people. For us, we do it between people, but that there was some cosmic state where before God brought order into the world, everything was in chaos, everything was disarrayed. And God brought some alignment by creating unitement and aligning. And that when we can do this in our own little lives, when we're kind to other people, it's like we're part of some cosmic process. So it's like you think, oh, I'm just repairing something in my life by repairing a relationship, but really I'm part of some much bigger thing. I'm actually repairing the whole universe by doing that. I'm participating in something.
Well, like what you taught us a few weeks ago about,
Yeah,
we have to do this project, we may not finish it, but we
Yeah,
have to engage
exactly.
in.
exactly. It's part of our purpose in this world is to do this. And when we try and find the graciousness in other people, then then we're fixing the world itself. And see the strengths. And maybe for some people, this part of our work in the world comes easily, so it's not such a big thing. But for those of us it becomes difficulty, every time we do it, we're making a huge fix and we're doing a big thing. And so it's like it's a big deal. Saying this is a big deal, not just a small thing.
Like the psychiatrist I work with at Forest Hospital used to tell us that some of these kids just acted so terrible, but he
Yeah.
said, find one thing
Yeah,
about this person that has some good and concentrate on that. Don't keep looking at all the
Right.
negative stuff.
Exactly.
And that's like,
Yeah.
we can do that with the people follow.
okay, fine. You do that with almost anybody.
Yeah, Netzach and Hod are called the teachings of God, since it is necessary for those who study the Torah of God to rectify the aspect of Hod and understand that all come from God. And it is known that Netzach and Hod are two halves of one body. This too.
Do you mind doing the note just below?
Oh,
This
okay.
is fun, but it's a little bit hard to follow.
Energetically, these energies are interrelated like two poles of one energetic quality. Each represents one leg, your left leg. Yeah. Neither can function without the other.
It's like a magnetic field, for example, that has a positive and a negative.
Negative,
They
right?
can't exist.
Yeah,
without
without
the
each
other.
other.
Right.
Ah. Hebrew
Can I
has
say something about?
Sure.
Okay, I was gonna say something a little bit different from what the other lady was saying, because when I run into people, run into situations, and in my thinking is that the I'm sorry, sometimes I can't pronounce words
No worries.
correctly. The obstacle
Yeah.
to our living in this world, spite other our people's bad choices, evil choices. Despite that, we are the ones that have to choose good and not evil. But that doesn't mean that if we have a conflict with the person and the person wants to hurt us, that doesn't
Yeah.
mean that we cannot defend ourselves.
No, you have to defend yourself, and, it's like you can say, God is in everything, right? God is in me, God is in you. But if a bus is coming towards you, you're not gonna say God is in the bus, you can move out of the way. Or if the God is coming in a tiger to come and eat you, you're gonna say God might be in the tiger, but I don't want I don't want the tiger God to come and eat me. I'd rather go, or the wolf, so, we wanna, the same with people, you can say, you can see the graciousness in the person, but stay far away from them too at the same time, or defend yourself. But you can still do your best to try and see that there's some good quality in them. So what a Rebbitzin would say to my father, see people as they are, but love them nonetheless. So be open-eyed, don't be naive. See the world as it is, but love people nonetheless. Go ahead. This two alludes. The top of page 4, the second.
Yeah, okay, this too alludes to the words love, ahava, and love, achala, that is necessary among wise students of Torah. Hebrew has many synonyms for love, such as ahava and achala. Here they are pointing. Pesach and Hod are 2 words for the same thing, essentially.
It is necessary.
That is necessary.
It is
It is
necessary that they know that one person is dependent on the other to grow in wisdom. And because of this understanding, they can learn from one another and behave respectfully towards one another. That is why the sages spoke about the schools of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel in Talmud Yevamot, in order to teach you that they conducted themselves with affection and friendship toward one another. They love truth and peace, Zechariah, an expression originating from Zechariah, often used to refer to a situation in which 2 parties who are in an argument maintain respect and love for one another despite their disagreements. And the opposite would be the case. God forbid if they did not understand that all comes from God and that the glory and majesty is before God, Psalm 96. In that case, they would be condescending with one another and not truly be paying attention, literally, not placing their hearts to what their fellow was saying.
Right, let's continue. Yeah, let's continue.
As the sages interpreted, a sword will be upon boasters and fools, Jeremiah. This refers to the case where every person imagines in her beliefs, because this was translated by that female rabbi,
That's
right?
right, that's right.
She is singularly important
Good.
in her generation, and that each person is for herself alone. In this situation, even if 2 such people study together, and each is constantly imagining to herself that she is the only one who brings forth the real wisdom, and likewise her fellow imagines this to herself, then neither will become wise from this studying, regardless of what they study or how long. And consequently, they will damage the precious holiness of the Torah that brings forth supernatural wisdom. Tanya, Torah, or by Etza 21b. And in this way, the flawed beliefs that the students hold impact the wisdom in their minds. And in this way, they become more foolish rather than wiser. I'd like to give this piece to about 25 people I know. And the Holy Torah is the tree of life, and the Torah gives life to those who follow it. Mishnah about 85. Well, we didn't read this down here. Do we need that? In context, God is condemning the nations who worship false gods. The sword will strike her diviners, they'll become fools. The word for diviners in Hebrew is similar to the word boasters, and is interpreted thus in this work to refer to those who don't recognize God as the origin of worthiness. Each person is for herself alone, not dependent on others, and should fend for their own interests alone. The Hebrew is bahad behad, which is a play on the word for boasters, bahadim, implying that people who believe that they are self-sufficient are arrogant. In other words, your attitude in life determines whether you are capable of receiving divine inspiration and spiritual inflow. Boy, that says a lot.
Says a lot, huh?
And the Holy Torah is the tree of life, and the Torah gives life to those who follow it. By means of studying Torah in truth and humility, those who study it draw forth righteousness and life force, as it is written, wisdom will bring to life those who possess her, Ecclesiastes 7. And the opposite is true if one learns Holy Torah with egoism and foolishness. Superficial motives will damage, God forbid, the essence of life. Chochmah, oh, I love that word, wisdom in gematria equals Chaim, life.
So,
Jews play a funny
so
game.
well, this is all a whole lot of little Torah and things,
Yeah.
but it's beautiful, right? And it's saying that it's talking about in the context of study, for example, but we can think about so many different arenas of life where it's this way where, you think I don't need anybody else and I'm not dependent on this and that there's, or I'm better, or not thinking about the other people, then that doesn't make us wiser. It'll just eventually make more foolish. But if we were generous of spirit and generous of grace, then that kind of communal thing together, we become greater than ourselves.
So what do you say to somebody who keeps insisting that they're right and you're wrong?
You don't say, you say,
Go read the
I
Torah.
refuse your gift.
I reserve your.
I refuse your gift, and
Okay.
You know, it's
We agree to disagree.
yeah.
in Buddhist thought, there's something called the big spaceship and the small spaceship.
Okay.
And the notion is, and this was a fight among that particular religion. The big spaceship was that everybody has to be ready to go to nirvana together.
On
The
the ship.
small spaceship is people individually could go to nirvana. And I think Jewish thought is balancing that. I have the feeling that both are possible. In other words, you can reach God on your own with the right attitude, the right study, etc. But you can also reach God in studying with other people and interacting with other people. So I think they do a better job of uniting that thing. That's what it feels like.
But I don't think it's saying you can't study on your own, that would be bad, but I think it's saying more about the attitude of it. If to have that true openness of humility. It's about humility really on some level, and about seeing the grace in other people, and even I think to reach God, even if you're a person who studies by oneself, one has to have, it could be, I guess, someone who's died, but to read their writings, but you need to have some kind of teacher, someone who's tread the path before you to help you on the path. And so if you think, oh, I know everything, and you haven't tread the path, you're just going to be walking through the bramble a lot. So, but I think but Judaism does have this sense of communal, which the Buddhists also have, and to some degree, but we were all brought into spiritual life together at Mount Sinai, and we have tradition that will, as a whole, be brought together into, an end of days, right? So we're trying to support each other, but essentially it is also an individual path. But yeah, it's interesting. But here I think it's really talking about a specific thing, which is one sense of thinking, the beauty of seeing the God's grace in other people. When we can see that, it doesn't mean we have to go to someone who is. I mean, there are people who in some ways are foolish. This means you have to take up their foolish thoughts, but it's more about seeing God's grace in all people, saying in this way or that way, God's grace is flowing in all people, and not being, and especially with people who are once peers, feeling a sense of being together within it, and not thinking I'm so great and this person is not. And then when you open that up, suddenly something else is flowing. And something else can take you to a really beautiful, special place. That's connected. It's like the tree of life. That thing gives you life, gives you energy. And if you close yourself and think, and you're just thinking that person, everybody's an idiot, and I'm just the only one, then you're closing yourself off to the tree of life in some circumstances. But, David, do you mind reading and one of the students?
And when the students of Rabbi Akiva did not behave with respect towards one another, the source of life was damaged. God save us. When Lag BaOmer arrived, the energetic aspect of Hod manifested because the supernal mother, Bina, extended down until the aspect of Hod. The supernal mother reflected upon them. The students of Akiva, the light of the face of the King of Life, and thus awakened the inspiration for redemption, Hebrew teshuvah, through the attribute of Bina, and her heart will understand and return to teshuvah and be healed for her, Isaiah. And they thus spread forth healing for the world. And by means of this teshuvah returning, they, the students, became humble towards one another. The one who wants to live will kill her lower self, nullify her lower self. Talmud Kadoshim Talmud, and thus they drew forth healing and life to the whole world. And it's this: the one who wants to live will kill her lower self.
Yeah.
Okay, see, yeah, just sort of deal with all of the dark passions.
Get rid of your lower self and opens up your upper self. And but they were saying that there are times, I think we can all relate to this in our world right now, where it's too hard to get there. Then there can be this is like a divine intervention that came from this moment in time where a certain aspect of God came through, which allowed people to see it, and so all this Kabbalah is we're in relationship with God. God isn't just something, but everything's always shifting. And so look, there are moments in our relationship where you can't see with another person, but then something shifts, something makes it happen. And it's a little moment, sometimes it could be, they would see as a moment of grace from God that allowed that to happen and allow an opening. And then it's up to us. Do you take the opening or not, right? Do you say, no, I'm not going to take the opening. This person really is as bad as I think there is, or do you try and see the good in
The
them?
footnote's very good here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too. The Hassidic answer to egocentricity is theocentricity. The means of nullifying the ego is the reorientation of who is the possessor of glory, the recognition that divinity is the source of all goodness we experience as our own.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the message of this whole thing. Very good.
Yeah. Thank you, Yael. She did it nice.
Yeah,
I
Sorry.
was just
very
hoping.
nice. Very
Yeah.
nice.
So thank you, everybody, tonight. And
Thank you.
and then tonight, if everybody has a chance, try and meditate or study something. And it's
All night.
well, at least for a few minutes.
Thank
Or at
you.
least-
Thank you. Don't light any bonfires unsafely.
Oh, boy.
No
Especially when
bonfires.
it's so hot.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.